Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is March 2017, the 26th day. And today is a very key, important day. Many major things are happening around the world. Thankfully, especially for those that are enlightened, which I'm going to give a very brilliant example with shortly. It's important that we move into this age very enlightened. So my name is Christopher Michael Curtis Bowen. I'm one of the Renaissance men of the 21st century, moving into the 22nd century. And it's very key that we, of course, understand, for example, from the example that has been led by great leaders, in this sense, this time is a little bit different because we are dealing with a little bit more corruption and a little bit more tyranny, oligarchies, and socialist bureaucratic control that existed in previous times, but that is okay, for the truth will set you free. It'll awaken minds and also entice and awaken the minds of young and old, being able to align with the truth and against illegal actions, corruption, and discrimination and negativity worldwide. So it's important that we know what are the important steps in this. It's what's really key is, really just I was doing research, of course, and really found out a lot about, in a sense, a lot about poli-sci, and basically the many different. Poli-sci is shorthand for political science. A lot of the many great examples and ideologies and the type of philosophy that certain philosophers and great thinkers and great movers and creators and writers did during the time all over the world, from Descartes to Nalotich, I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that, Nalotich to Plato, the student of Socrates, to Thomas Jefferson, Madison. So I'm going to break it down. It's important that we understand ultimately what I think is one of the most important analogies of this entire episode, which ultimately is what we're moving into, which is ultimately, in essence, an enlightened state of being, an enlightened state of mind, an enlightened state of existence, and looking forward to our future, so that we can not only understand the big picture, but move creatively, not only as individuals, which I work very, very well, exist as very, very well, and create a very good legacy and leadership role to do very, very well, but ultimately to make it last and to make sure that our liberties are protected, our right to freedom is protected, and that every right to man is protected properly, and that we have our God-given rights and that they aren't usurped. So it's important to know one of the great analogies that I would like to start off with before I get into a lot of the stuff that's going around the world, to reiterate what is already known. Great analogy is, which I'm just going to summarize, is the Plato analogy. Now, Plato basically described a cave allegory. I'm going to take it to the next notch and actually make it more realistic. So, in a sense, there's a lot of people, for example, in the dark, in a dark room, they're huddled, or they're just trying to find their way. It's pitch black, you can't see anything. But you feel around, there's people's hands, and you start, holding on to people's hands, and you grab on, and then, there's a little bit more comfort when you grab onto people's hands, but someone, pulls out a flashlight, and then, all of a sudden you have a flashlight, and there's a light in the dark. Now you can see a little bit more. You can look around, you can see what's around, you can see what's going on, you can have a clearer view, and in this sense, also the allegory of the cave. For example, you take this flashlight, and you travel up. You're trying to explore the cave. You're trying to look around you, and you come back to the people that are still holding hands in the dark and say, "Hey, there's something more outside this cave." And there's a tendency, for the cave mentality to have that continuous thinking of, we're not allowed to move outside of this box that we believe in which we should stay in, because it's in a sense a comfort zone. Most people don't want to get out of the comfort zone, which is in a sense an allegory for not wanting to move into an enlightened state of being. So what does that mean? in a sense, that issue of, when you go outside of the cave and, when you see, the sun and you see nature and then you see, the stars and you see the universe, and then you go back down into the cave and explain this, you can be, ridiculed as a kook, or as a crazy person, or as someone that's just out of their mind, and no one would really be interested in going out into a world besides the cave and the dark, and it's a very weird analogy because we live on the surface world, but in the fact there are hollow cities that we can move in, hollow areas that we can live in, and they're very, very large, and they have beautiful crystal caves that are in there. There's caves that many people can live in and live in peace, and once again, that alone solves the issue of overpopulation. But once again, in order to get to that mindset, we have to understand that we are more capable and have a more open mind, have a more expansive ability to actually achieve our goals and solutions, which are easier to achieve than in a sense, agreeing to not that we agree with the dictators and tyrants, but to ultimately, going back to the analogy of the cave, and tying it into the analogy of socialist bureaucrats and this elitist oligarchy that don't have the best interests of we the people in mind. It, in a sense, to crystallize it very well, it does not make sense to, in a sense, stay in the dark and be unaware of the stage of enlightenment that could be more possible and more capable and, in a sense, more possible and more peaceful and more greater way to live. That is something that, of course, would be a more ethical foundation, is reaching toward a status of enlightenment. So I'm going to break it down a little bit more, to give more examples and give more facts about what's going on. It's important that we make ideas, ideas that protect the minority, the majority, that protect we the people, that protect the Americans, that protect us, and are the interest of all of us, to increase a better standard of living. Now, the problem is we have, or this is past tense in a sense, the problem is there's corruption in this legislative branches, the judicial branches, and the executive branches. It is not, this is, of course, not a time, in a sense, to try and to cause disharmony such as that was similar to the Federalist Papers and the disharmony that was going on with Madison, the Federalist Papers, Jefferson, John Quincy Adams. At that time period, we understand we can learn from that history, and we're actually able to move in a more enlightened step, more enlightened leaders, by saying, not only by wanting to solve these solutions with unity and just by moving forward in a sense with unity, but to stop, in a sense, the disunity, move on to the next thing, but move on with the intent of pure unity, for the greater good, for the entirety of the legislative, the judicial, and the executive branch, and for the entirety of America and the states as well. So federal and states, for the good of all the people and those individuals that work for a better unity and a more perfect union. It's important that, for example, that we, for example, consider the ethics of nationalism, which, of course, McCain is totally against, but I digress. So let's describe nationalism, because apparently it's important that I break this down. It's an ethical means of expressing a group's desire for self-determination, or is it an unethical posture that nurtures the tendency to exclude from fair treatment members outside of the nation. Normative questions questions involving value judgments concerning what is right and wrong, such as these are central to politics, even when political scientists are being thoroughly empirical, recording, observing, and analyzing data. They deal with a subject matter that, by its very nature, raises ethical questions. So, no matter ultimately when we're dealing with politics, we are dealing with ethics. So when we're dealing with the issue of healthcare and this socialistic, bureaucratic view and control of it by these, let's just tell it as it is, by these medical tyrants, it is not in the good of the people. For where, if we want to have more choice, to be able to pick and choose the type of healthcare that we want, it would be more beneficial to allow that be in the hands of the people and in the hands of free market, not in the hands of mandates. So actually allowing marketplace. That means, I just don't mean in the sense of healthcare should still be a big giant box that you can pick all these things from. It's actually a lot more diverse than that, and I'm going to break that down because there is actually, once again, a more positive and more beneficial way to enhance and really benefit the entirety of society moving forward in a much more enlightened way. And I'm going to explain that with really simple breakdown, and then also with an excellent analogy of actually how we should, one of the ways we should move forward. The fact of the matter is that healthcare does not just isn't just restricted to the majority current understanding of what healthcare is. We've got MRIs, we've got mammograms, we've got radiology, we've got chemotherapy, we've got pharmaceuticals, and also there's also the issue where certain groups and people have to pay for certain healthcare that necessarily is for them, but isn't necessarily even for them at all. Doesn't fit for them. For example, there's no reason that children should have to pay for something, pay for a type of healthcare that only elders need, or vice versa, or something. A certain gender type of healthcare shouldn't be paying for healthcare that is only for the complete opposite gender. And that has nothing to do with their type of health. There shouldn't be extra payment and extra taxation upon healthcare, and that's a whole issue in itself. As well, it should be known that there's of course an enlightened view to healthcare that's way more beneficial, way cheaper, way more effective, way more beneficial, and way more successful, and way more, of course, just totally all around, hands over heads. I mean, just next level better. And the thing is, me as an individual, of course, it's great individuals that ultimately make the great changes in this century that change the way that history is made, that change the way that society is run, that changes, the actual allows evolution and great manifestations of grassroots peaceful revolutions to take place on planet Earth, not just in countries, but of course across the entire planet. And these major individuals believing in these new ethical ways to tackle these everyday problems is such a positive solution to the way we can not only view our health and our education, but our politics and our economics, and therefore our very standard of living, because this is to increase for the good of all. Now, what I'm describing is not only the healing technology of holographic rejuvenating med beds, which I've mentioned before many times. Captain Randy Cramer, I'm going to contact him again soon, is one of them, is in charge of basically this rejuvenating medbed, holographic rejuvenating medbed, and he describes it very well. You can look it up on his website. You can do your own research on it too. This is such a next level type of medical care that it obviously is much, much better and much cheaper, and obviously much more effective than our current understanding of healthcare, and it's way more natural. Just as the understanding of how, well, I'm going to give a better example. 4 hours. It takes about 4 hours to regrow a limb with this type of technology. It takes, and just to throw it out there, and I've already mentioned this, about 10 of these is equal to the cost of one MRI. And it cures cancer, it cures blindness, it cures deafness, it cures every neurological disease, it cures every single type of blood disease, every type of bone disease. It cures all diseases, it cures all ailments, and it cures all limb problems, missing limbs. All the so-called incurable diseases are cured with this technology alone. With this technology alone, all right? So just replacing hospitals with this, for example, would create a much more prosperity and much more benefits for the hospital, for the patients, and for the nation's healthcare as we understand it now. There's also crystal healing, which, the certain frequency, or sonic healing, you vibrate the sonic sounds of a certain area, organ that vibrates at a certain frequency, and literally the disease is shaken off. I've described that many times before, previously when I was younger, and advocated for that very strongly. There are many, many examples of much more advanced society levels, steps that we can take, not just for medical education, but for college education, for child education, and it was this program that was put in place a very long time. For example, Common Core is not a very good, very effective way to teach children. And actually, how do you ruin a country? Basically, you destroy their medicine, their health, and you destroy their intelligence. You destroy their education system, and that's what's been done. But it's actually very easy to provide a solution to, because, for example, just by telling the truth and having the truth set you free, that obviously opens the mind to a lot more things, as well as getting rid of the corruption that's inside of our government, in the legislative branch and the judicial branch and the executive branch. It's not necessarily about causing more chaos, but actually being united and providing more order and looking at the big picture and understanding and looking and deciding with discernment, with clarity, and with good intentions in mind. It's what allows us to segue in a more peaceful, more prosperous, and much more accelerated rate. That's beneficial not only for this country but for other countries, as this evolution of enlightened progression accelerates throughout the entire world, as we as a country lead by example. Some of the wonderful, one moment.
What's up, Owen? Got something for you. Awesome. Thank you for the school. Very much. All right, man.
As I was saying, there's many more examples to move on in the world in which how we can progress, and one of those examples is, well, not examples, but the simple ways to do it is to really bringing back the concept of natural rights, because apparently that's important to reiterate. Because of course, that's the foundation of what happened in 1776, and exactly what is happening now, which is a usurping of, or a misunderstanding of our God-given rights and natural rights, which are not just there to be stated in the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, but there to be protected and to not be usurped by tyranny. And to actually not just be something that, is a privilege, but to actually be a God-given right, and something that we should automatically have and keep. We can examine the Declaration of Independence defined a theory that conceptualizes equality in terms of equality of natural rights. The Declaration's political theory is straightforward. It states that 1, individuals are created naturally equal. 2, individuals possess natural rights. 3, it is the proper role of government to protect and respect these natural rights. And 4, if the government aggress against these equal natural rights, individuals may overturn such governments. So it's in a sense our duty as we the people to overturn the illegal actions and the criminal and the tyrannical actions of such usurpation of the rights actually at the state level. This is an important point that David Knight brought up, really bringing it back to the state level, and InfoWars in general brings it back up. To lead by example at the states level, which happened in North Dakota. You can research that for yourself. But states, ultimately, this is a great thing. States are taking a positive step toward allowing themselves to create a better unity for their states, for their people, to individuals that make up the state, and for the states that make up the country. Allowing more fluid motion, allowing more fluid growth, and allowing more prosperity, and natural rights to be in existence. So another key point I would like to make, some of the things that are going on is, which of course something that should really be reiterated over and over and over, is the balance of powers within our government, is the balance between all 3 branches of our government. When that happens, when we're in that state, then we can of course move on. I'm not going to give examples necessarily of how it's imbalanced, but I will describe back to the basis of what made it so great. So, and this is something that James Madison brought up, which is the system of checks and balances. So, one branch should have the ability to obstruct the activities of a rival branch. This would have the effect of restricting state power even more than the separation of powers alone, because it would allow the branches to weaken one another. The executive can weaken the legislature by means of a veto, whereas the legislature can weaken the executive by voting to override the veto. The judiciary can weaken either legislative or executive power by declaring legislative or executive actions unconstitutional by virtue of the power of judicial review, but the judiciary can also be weakened by the other 2 branches because executive appoints and the legislator approves members to the highest court, the judiciary. I mean, of course, in a sense, this is common sense, but when we have corruption, which is actually going on, which is, members of the Congress are not necessarily working for the interests of the American people, and we have executive branches that are really just lobbyists for a lot of them, for example, previously, who have the intents to not necessarily work for we the people within a balanced state, in a sense, more once again working for special interests such as George Soros, which is actually being worked on right now by many great patriots and people all over the world, because not a lot of people like George Soros. And of course, judicial branches, and some of the major things was, there's constant appointments. For example, you can research this yourself as well, which I strongly encourage. Judicial constantly sabotaged. Judicial judges were sabotaging the NASARA. When it gets brought back up, they would constantly sabotage it, and that was something that was supposed to be a very positive economic reform that was stopped over and over and over and over. And you can read the history on that. I'm not going to reiterate that. I've beat that dead horse for a very, very long time. Bringing that down to really the ethical situation of this time that we're living right now as we're making history is to reiterate kind of what happened in 1806 and through 1873 by an English philosopher named John Stuart Mill, who upheld the view that individuals should be allowed to judge ethical questions for themselves. Government should not try to make individuals ethical, nor should governments become involved in individual lives to protect individuals from incorrect opinions. So you see that happening not only with mainstream media, which is it's very rampant, it's very bad, and then you have truthful, actual hardworking, actually wanting to promote prosperity, freedom, and the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and protect our rights and protect free speech, especially the First Amendment, which is under attack. It's important that, for example, great people like Alex Jones stand up for what he's standing up for, which is very, very bold. And once again, that's leading by example. It's individuals like that, as well as Roger Stone, as well as David Knight, that do a very good job, as well as me, that do a very good job in paving the way toward leading by example how to truly be honest and truthful into this very, very epic time of really moving towards an age of Renaissance and Enlightenment. And it's important that, once again, individuals should be allowed to judge ethical questions for themselves, especially when it comes to sexual trafficking. I'm going to get onto that a little bit later. Now, everyone benefits if government removes itself from questions of personal morality, according to Mill. Individuals benefit because they possess the liberty to live their lives as they please. Society also benefits because society gains whenever it encourages free thinkers to express themselves and explore new ideas. So once again, this is John Stuart Mill's explanation and belief. But once again, this is an incredibly important time, especially incredibly important key idea, especially in these times. It really crystallizes how we can move forward. Also, moving on, describing a little bit more, these far-sighted individuals can formulate bold and innovative approaches for moving societies forward. In fact, Mill was convinced that progress is made by people who refuse to accept conventional ways of thinking and acting. From Socrates on, Mill argued, iconoclastic thinkers have challenged traditional notions of ethics and have offered original insights on social and political problems. That is exactly what I do. That's exactly what David Knight does very well. That's exactly what Alex Jones and Roger Stone do very, very, very well, as as many great positive patriots and veterans that are hardworking and who have supported and are supporting our freedom in our American way. I challenge, of course, I challenge the education system and the history that we truly know, because there's a lot more history about Earth that is not known to, and it's not even taught. That's something that I challenge, of course, and have challenged for for years. Of course, and because of that, it says we have social problems where we can really develop ourselves in a more united way that not only unites the entire world, but in the world in a society that can formulate a galactic society, not only uniting, which is one of the major visions and major mission statements of Project Hypercane, but is to unite inner Earth, hollow Earth, and the surface world in a peaceful, co-creative plane, or co-creative foundation that can be the greatest foundation for a galactic society that can move on to the next stages of evolution. Therefore, by getting part of that movement involves getting out of a Type 0 civilization. And we can easily get out of a Type 0 civilization and move and be in existence of a Type 1 civilization by solving our social and political problems with economic solutions alone. One of the major things, or the easy, simple solutions to that is, what's actually already underway, is Captain Randy Kramer's holographic rejuvenation medbeds. That's a great economic and medical solution. As well as zero-point energy, free energy technology over Unity technologies, and sonic healing technologies. Those are really great, beneficial energy, economy boosting solutions to the previous, to the old-fashioned conventional ways of thinking and acting. Once again, I'm acting and thinking on a whole nother level. It's a movement. It's, in a sense, a patriotic movement. I am an individual that, of course, has more pro-human, in a sense, mindset towards, because these are, once again, out of the norm of the conventional ways of thinking and acting, and more into original insights on the problems that have greater, grander, and more enlightened solutions. it's important to put it in the spotlight. That's what I really like about David Knight and Alex Jones and many of the InfoWars team and many of the Breitbart and of course Drudge Report and many of the alternative news sites is they put it out into the light, and they allow many people all over the world, not just in America, to have the insight to be able to use discernment to how they can clearly be able to not only understand what's going on, but how to act morally and ethically, because you cannot necessarily have you cannot assume, especially at this stage, that the government. When I say the government, I'm really talking about usually mostly the oligarch parts. The oligarchy, like basically, let's just give a name. There's many names like Pelosi's and Maxine Waters and McCain's but the old-fashioned oligarchy that wants to start wars and create all this nonsense. It's important that once again we move on to a better light, especially with the patriots who have now the insight to know the facts of the matters of what's actually going on. The major pedophilia networks and sex trafficking, and that's actually what's really the main issues that Project Rejuvenation works on, is to end all of that and then once again step into an age of where the opposite is in existence. That type of course, February 1st there was a major bust that happened, and of course a lot were arrested, but it needs to be eliminated. That's one of the things that Project Hypercane works on. That's just a moral thing to do. That's kind of common sense. That's a very, very easy moral thing to do. So now moving on, it's also important, Mill concluded that the expression of incorrect ideas can also benefit society, and that the expression of error can give people a clearer view of what error looks like, which is why McCain is so key, which is why Pelosi is so key, which is why Paul Ryan, that upset that happened, it's very amazing that that was a very interesting moment, but I totally think it had to happen. It was absolutely horrible, and it was a very interesting progression of events, especially after 70 days. We can say we could say shoulda, coulda, woulda about that event, but hey, we already have a really easy, quick, more advanced solution that doesn't cost nearly as much time and money to invest in. That's immediate effect as soon as April. So, what is that? Holographic rejuvenation med beds. Advanced healing technology. Just all of that advanced healing technology. Put that out there. Just putting that out, and it's literally a grander, better, cheaper, and more effective and efficient solution on a state scale, for one, and on a... of course, there's going to be a state. That's going to be the next thing. It's going to be a race to the most beneficial healthcare in the state. And that's exactly what's happening right now, because we're already moving on to the next stage, which is going to be going to be tax cuts. Once again, money's going to start pouring in, because tax cuts are not only going to be applied to... Okay, this is a two-part thing. Tax cuts and how taxation has been previously used on America, and also previously in American history. So, back in history, taxation was a big deal, and we didn't support it. Now, taxation, we meaning Jefferson, the founding fathers, and all of those amazing colonists, Americans who started and built this country. Excuse me. Now we have the same issue, except it's much more major. We have more taxes, way more taxes than we should have. We have taxes on healthcare, which are unnecessary. We have taxes on... you can research this. I'm pretty sure I'm right. We have taxes on incoming goods, and we have taxes on outgoing goods. We have tariffs that are unnecessary. But at the same time, TPP was killed. TPP is dead. And that was, once again, multilateral trade. That's... one-sided, should not be going on. Multilateral trade agreements are not beneficial for us, for planet Earth. for planet Earth too, but for it's not beneficial for America. And once again, we must. I mean, we will. We will have tax cuts, and these are going to be amazing, huge plethora amounts of money that's going to be poured back into the American people. And guess what that can be used for? For health, for better education, and for better living, better standard of living. So we got more food, we got more health, we got more easy, better way to travel, and then all that money can go into what? We can go into infrastructure. We can build more bridges, more houses, more homes. We can build, actually work on building roads and streets and highways, and we can build not necessarily the old type of structures, but once again, moving forward as an individual with original insights to our social and political problems, and economic problems and educational problems. Let's now have one of the things, and I'm just going to break it down really simply, is a dam. It's like a dam, but it's on the shores of the ocean, like waves. All that energy that waves, it's continuously pouring energy back onto this sand. That energy can be turned into a generator, and that generator can be used to power homes on the shore. And therefore, you got endless amounts of energy just from the motion of waves that produces enough energy to power probably an entire city and multiple cities, entire district. So that's very, very key. It's important that we figure out new ways to not only save but to be more economically efficient on a next level stage. I'm not just talking about clean energy where like we have solar and wind and coal, but once again, new age, 0 point energy. I'm talking about free energy. I'm talking about more input than there. I'm talking about more output than there is input, right? And that stuff has been in existence for decades. So that's something that we must definitely have. However, once again, it's important that we know what era looks like going back to the era, because we know what era looks like with I'm not going to bring up this topic of electricity. We know what era looks like with electricity, with solar, with wind, and with gasoline. One of the best ways of exposing error is to let proponents of error speak and show themselves to be charlatans. Thus, however tempting it may be, states should avoid the role of moral guardian. So, once again, that's a very innovative, peaceful, stable, sustainable solution that provides enlightenment to advancement and to abundance of human society in general. And that's ultimately what should be really reiterated is, once again, the balance of the 3 branches. And I also suggest a embassy of peace. There's an actual embassy of peace. I would suggest a combination of both of those. So an embassy of peace, that's the real one, that involves, I'm pretty sure, and you can research this for yourself, but it involves extraterrestrial contact and an extraterrestrial advanced civilization society, and basically just their, in a sense, a mindset of actual advanced civilizations and how they develop peace and how they sustain their peace, and how that's a very good model for what our culture should mature into. Now, Embassy of Peace that I want to briefly describe is full of individuals that, also should have 3 branches, in a sense of executive, legislative, and judicial. But ultimately, it basically is there to, in a sense, replace the UN, to be actually more peaceful, to be more prosperous, to provide stability, sustainability, encourage advancement at the highest and best accelerated rate for all human beings. Well, I guess it's an extended branch of our government. Actually, I don't think it should be an extended branch of government per se, but in a sense a more advancement, enlightened way of viewing how we can move forward. Because this Embassy of Peace should be full of individuals who have the best, who are the best and the brightest, who have positive hearts, intentions in mind, who have the strong desire and the will to continue to create peace and abundance with the best understanding of technologies and the best understanding of the most intelligent ways of viewing the most positive ethics and moral results of every single possible positive fruition of human evolution in our country and ultimately throughout the world. It should be those with, that are very respectful, responsible, those who are accountable for their actions, very trustworthy, truthful, honest, dedicated to service to others, dedicated to doing the best they can, and dedicated to ultimately a better future for themselves, for the many, for all, and for the interest of all, and for the prosperity and for the future generations. Very, very, very key. Very, 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 very key. And to live in a state of abundance, which is absolutely possible in our lifetime. So I'm going to switch gears here and talk a little bit about the EU. This is actually a very short segment. Talk a little bit about the EU, the NATO, UN, and wars between those. Once again, I'm putting out all in a sense understanding of the allegory that I explained before of the cave. We had this mentality of how we were to keep in the dark and not necessarily move out of this comfort zone, and how we can be more enlightened with our movements, with our thoughts, and with our education. We should therefore be more enlightened as we move forward with better, stronger, and more efficient clarity of how we can progress in terms of how we're supposed to have true unity. United Nations, I'm just going to be absolutely blunt, does not do a good job, and of course we are, and we should, and we will get out of it. We are not going to be a part of the UN. And the Embassy of Peace would be a much, much grander, better solution, as we are the forefront that actually starts that. Who is that? It wasn't Carter. Or maybe it was Carter who suggested the UNs. It was before World War II, I want to say. I should know that. But that president made the decision to do that. So now, in a sense, I, as the individual, I'm making that decision that we create, once again, an avenue for a peaceful future. And it's important that we create an actual peaceful future for peace with factual-based evidence, which I have done, and also many great important individuals have done. But it's really key that because I've done the research and I put this all together, that we actually create peace on Earth, because that is an actual positive fruition that we can do and start with the Embassy of Peace. UN doesn't do that very well. Neither does NATO, neither does the EU. It's very clear of what Le Pen thinks of the EU. I think that's very clear, an understanding of what actual sovereignty is toward really the people, and protecting their sovereignty. And all the wars that happened, of course, those wars were absolutely unnecessary. And instead, we can have the ability to do the opposite. We have in a sense what we can be called initiatives of absolute abundance and prosperity throughout the entire world. And we can start that with initiatives of prosperity in our country. And it's an action, it's an intent, and it's an entire desire with the same ferocity that comes with war, with the same ferocity that comes with peace. So in this time, we're now living in a time where there's more ferocity for peace, for unity, for co-creative advancement, for stability and sustainability with the best advanced products, with the best minds of innovation and invention, with the most positive fruition that ever existed, ever on planet Earth, and ever in American history. This time is an age where there's such incentive and such, in a sense, such greater prosperity and greater, for lack of a better word, incentive to really be an entrepreneur, to be an individual, or to be some type of positive group that's working towards abundance, which is an really easy to gain or really easy to sustain birthright for every single citizen of America and pretty much for the entire world. Because once again, this does not just stop. I mean, there's no boundaries of this thinking of how we can truly progress this embassy of peace. This is, of course, for all of positivity in mind. So once again, this is the opposite of a war. This is pure intention of positivity. This is Renaissance. This is Renaissance, the Golden Age. Now, it's important that we have sovereignty in healthcare. In healthcare and food and travel and housing and property and education and ultimately sovereignty and freedom. You know, what was in a sense a radicalism that versus nationalism, which of course McCain is against. He's against nationalism. And it may, and I'm going to go so far as to say maybe it's just a misunderstanding. The positivity that comes from nationalism and the pride of supporting liberty and freedom of our posterity, our natural rights, is something that's very key and very important for the very evolution that we must have. It's important that I as an individual be able to speak my truth so that this can be used to accelerate, as I described before, accelerate the very evolution of humanity. Now, we had a sort of oligarchy for healthcare and a sort of oligarchy for education. We are being freed from that, not only on the work that is done by me through many of my different outlets, through many of my different researches and many of my different radio broadcasts that I do almost every single day. It's important that we, in a sense, which is very easy to do, that we unite on getting rid of the oligarchy and the socialist bureaucracy in our nation, and replace it with true free market instead of what allowed the oligarchy to get so big, which is a lot of illegal drug trade, which Project Rejuvenate works to end, but to work against the illegal drug trade, to end the illegal drug trade, and to bring sovereignty and ultimately an economic prosperity back to the free market, back to the we the people, and once again building more advanced infrastructure that would be beneficial for our entire world. So once again, or our entire country. So it's important that it's very easy to get caught in the bickering between left and right, or up and down, or side to side. But it's actually quite easier to be more aware of how easy it is to move forward with the understanding of the advanced medical, the advanced applications of economic transitions that come from tax cuts all the way back into transit, or all the way forward into a transition of pure abundance, and also very easy to focus back into how a balanced powers, especially balanced with the Embassy of Peace, which actually will be a very, very great balancing agent towards balancing corruption, by having peace be, once again, the main attention, and of course the best and brightest minds working in cohorts, always trying to have the best possible fruition be in state with their own balanced powers. At the same, that would be for politics, and at the same time, the best for solutions for socialism, or excuse me, for social problems, is we are able to not only see what's going on right now, see the errors, but also see the individuals that, when their liberties are protected, how those great solutions can promote general welfare for the entire state and therefore the entire country. So, once again, sovereignty has traditionally been understood as the attribute states have when they, in actuality, carry out the tasks of providing security, extraction, and rulemaking. That is, technically a state can exist, the offices can exist, but the state may or may not be effective in carrying out its tasks. In this case, we would say a state is present, but it lacks sovereignty, the ability to actually carry out the task of providing security and so on. A state is unable to exercise sovereignty is sometimes referred to as a failed state. For example, when President Bush made the argument in favor of continued U.S. military involvement in Iraq despite declining popular support for the war, by asserting that the removal of U.S. troops could result in a failed state in Iraq, that is, an Iraqi state too weak to maintain law and order and security for its citizens. A failed state of this sort, Bush had warned, could serve as the launching ground for a myriad of terrorist groups, insofar as states claim for themselves the ultimate power of over a territory and thus claim that individuals and groups can exercise powers in territory as long as they do not contradict state power. States claim sovereignty for themselves and deny it to individuals and groups within their territories. Ultimately, we know what happens, especially if you're informed, you're enlightened, and say both of the best worlds. You know ultimately the effect of the wars, the effect of the groups, and those who have funded those groups, the Clinton Foundation, and those who do not support those groups, and the ideologies that have gone on. And of course, I'm going to break that down. I'm going to try to, but in a sense, I really don't need to. It's already known that the type of religious fundamentalism behavior that stems from this type of radical extremism, and it's important, and we know the result, and we know where it's going, and at the same time we know how to pull the rug out from under that, because when you are enlightened, when you're informed, when you're educated, and especially when you're incredibly wise and aware of what's going on, when you're informed and you know the truth, especially with this weird progression that tyranny tries to take usually, you're able to really see clearly through it. You're able to take actions, and you're able to, once again, change the course of history, work towards developing history and towards a more positive, more prosperous, and more abundant route for all countries. And it's important that, once again, we do, it's so easy and so obvious, we do the opposite of war we create an environment that's beneficial to all beings. And it makes chaos, and there's so much order that is nearly, what ultimately is the result, it's nigh impossible to cause chaos in those areas, and in areas in general. Now, it's also key to know that there are so many solutions, so many reasons, and so many possibilities of a grander, brighter, more positive future that, in a sense, the questions that previously did not have answers have answers. So now, here's some important questions. Is it possible to equalize all without harming some? Should individuals be equal in every way? Should laws pursue equality so diligently that laws provide for equality of capabilities rather than equality of opportunities? Can equality become a basis for oppression? In a sense, history explains. In a sense, many of these previous individuals explain, like Madison and Machiavelli and Descartes and Analytich and the books that was written thereof, Thomas Paine as well, really, really break down and really explain the answers. And also it's important that we have the discernment to know these type of answers, which is actually incredibly obvious, which is absolutely wonderful. It's important also that we break down exactly, kind of, in a sense, the roots. Not necessarily the roots, but in a sense, a type of understanding of why, just to educate. So, here we go. Mill's ideas are dangerous and are to be rejected according to many religious fundamentalist political theorists. Fundamentalism, whether Christian, Islamic, or from a different faith tradition upholds what it defines as religious truth, basic fundamental propositions that are validated by the religion itself. Fundamentalists are often described as ultra-orthodox, that is, as advocates of what they regard as a strict, non-syncretic approach to religious observance, an observance that claims not to dilute the purity and literalism of religious teachings by incorporating secular and competing religious practices into the original faith. So we see that going on with the religion of, well, at least the extremist radical side of Islam. It's very, very different from the ideas and the views versus the actual religion itself, which is actually described very well in a PragerU video that I explained previously that was also placed on Infowars.com. There's a link that I want to say, actually I could be wrong, I want to say Paul Joseph Watson, but it probably wasn't Paul Joseph Watson. It was the Friday, March 24th. March 24th and March 23rd, of course they tie in together. March 23rd and March 24th. Not to really bring up the past. Once again, if you're clear and you have clarity, you know how to break down what's actually going on. But to connect the dots, especially to new listeners, and especially to what I'm about to read right now, allows you to really get brilliant insight, and to be an individual, you can clearly be able to lead with an understanding of how we can step into an age of enlightened and abundance with the understanding of how fundamentalism contributes to a range of political perspectives. So I'm going to describe this a little bit further. In the U.S., fundamentalism has often defined itself in opposition to science, as well as to what it regards as secular forces seeking to alter traditional family structures. And in the Middle East and Central areas, fundamentalists have often been critics of international power structures seen as imperialistic. Despite variations in fundamentalist theory and practice, fundamentalists tend to assert that religious truth is authoritative, religious truth is compelling and not to be disregarded or reduced to being a mere option, and if fundamentalism is to guide government policy, government policy, laws must codify the authoritative truths of the religion, not assume a posture of neutrality or silence on the issues of politics. We can look to the teachings of Afghan Taliban movement and the writings of Patrick J. Buchanan, and born in 38, to see specific examples of fundamentalist critiques of million perspectives on state ethics relations. Ultimately, to summarize a next key portion, which is actually pretty much already known, I'm going to say is already known, is the fact of the matter that, okay, we got a major issue with extremists believing it's their religion to say it's okay to not only behead certain groups and to be incredibly brutal and inequalitative to an opposite gender or to a certain mindset or to Christians or to certain ideologies. It's very, very, of course, vulgar ultimately to of course support and continue to advocate for the killing, for the murder, and for the rape of women, children, and the destruction of culture and society, and advocating for that. Of course, that's not good. Of course, that's not good at all. So, of course, wisdom, clarity, and positive attention allows, once again, to see the bigger picture. So as we, in a sense, move on into this age of more positive enlightenment into this age of understanding of exactly what can be broken down, especially with education. It's important that we can, in a sense, be able to have discernment toward certain things, such as monarchy, which is ruled by one in the interest of all; aristocracy, which is ruled by the few in the interest of all; polity, ruled by the many in the interest of all; tyranny, ruled by one in the interest of the ruler; oligarchy, ruled by the few in the interest of the rulers; democracy, ruled by the many in the interest of the rulers. And those definitions are to break down, in a sense, how we can, in a sense, allow freedom for ourselves. So, I'm going to break down a little bit further. As soon as I find exactly the areas that I highlighted before I started this broadcast, the ability to see clearly, as I described earlier, what error looks like allows us to move into this next stage of actually being able to understand injustice as being something that is contrary to nature. Now, back again to the allegory that I described earlier, that we need to throw off the shackles of the socialist bureaucrats when it comes to everything that their mindset has, which is just to control, enslave, and just be nasty, especially towards in the pedophilia network, and which has been described and really trying to be avoided by these really major top criminals. That's the awesome thing, because especially coming out, that's going to come out, and a lot of people, of course, are not going to be okay with it, especially if you have children. It's going to come out, and the finger pointing is not going to go back to those who reveal it, like Alex Jones, who's telling the truth, but it's going to go back to those who are in charge of the major pedophilia and the major crimes, such as Bill Clinton, such as the Clintons in general, such as, and I'm not afraid to say that, I'm just telling the truth. I mean, those people need to be indicted, as I said yesterday. Pretty sure I said yesterday or the day before. They need to be indicted, put in jail. And once again, they're not too big to jail. Obama officials are not too big to jail. We are a nation of laws, not a nation of men. They need to be not only put on trial for their crimes and, basically shown for their illegal actions that they committed to, but they need to be put on trial, they need to be indicted, they need to be criminalized, and they need to go to jail. And that is underway. Now, there was a previous... there's a double standard with these socialist bureaucrats and oligarchs who believe in free trade with other nations, in a sense, but do not believe in free healthcare. In a sense, there's the one-sidedness, once again, that is brought up with this oligarchy of interests of the few versus the interests of the many, or interests of all. That goes on with these absolute criminals. And this is subverting the very democracy and freedom and liberties that are inalienable rights due to every single citizen in America. And these should not be usurped. It's, in a sense, this next statement is backwards. Businesses, to own a business and to be a small business owner is a privilege. But, it's mandatory that illegal citizens have welfare. And see, that's the double standard right there. Illegal citizens. Illegal immigrants can have welfare, but, it's a privilege for a small business owner to own a business. That is absolutely backwards, and that is not exactly protecting, once again, the American rights. It's not protecting the American economy, and it's not protecting American sovereignty. And once again, this is the awesome really key important thing is that which has already been going underway, is we need to exercise sovereignty. The states need to exercise their sovereignty. And that's a wonderful thing that's happening right now, and I can just say that to tell the truth. One of the great ways to exercise sovereignty, especially in this state here, which is underway right now, and it's going to be accelerated. But not only is these free energy devices being looked into to run our small businesses, to put more money back into the hands of the small business owners, or perhaps even lower prices, and perhaps even increase advertisement, and perhaps even increase quality and standard of living for both the business owners' homes and their actual establishments and their businesses. But to actually once again put wealth back into the customers, and put wealth back into the businesses all over, and put wealth back into the city. So you got many different places in the city and all over the state that have not only the best form of energy, but the best and the most efficient form of healthcare, which is, once again, this 21st century healthcare, which is pure rejuvenation that cures absolutely everything. Cures absolutely everything. I just love saying that. I'm going to say it again. Cures absolutely everything. That is a way better solution that is grander for all the people. That actually allows advancement. That is something that must happen. And I say that with absolute will, desire, conviction, action. My entire being is in what I say, and that's essence of truth. We have the ability to cure all diseases simply, inexpensively, and incredibly quickly. See, this honestly, this stuff that happened in the 70 days it took to do Obamacare, we could have, which doesn't even cost that much. We can have, for example, and here's a great solution, which actually is kind of underway. I was gonna start this and have like a goal by the end of the summer, but I just realized I'm gonna shorten it. I'm trying and kind of up the ante and trying to accelerate this process, because once again, this will definitely save lives. Is $10,000 in donations every single month towards this rejuvenation med bed would meet the $70,000 goal that Captain Randy Kramer has in 7 months from now. Of course, that is way easier, way more beneficial, and way faster than anything that Paul Ryan did in the 7 years that he had to work on it. I can do in 7 months what Paul Ryan failed to do in 7 years. And something that's better and more efficient for the entire country. And I can do that at the state level. And that will be so beneficial. There will be people coming from all over the country coming to one state to have the best form of healthcare. And then they can then they could be flown back or sent back, or go back fully healed. I mean, you can have diabetes, 3 limbs missing, and Alzheimer's. You'll be cured. Well, the limb regrowth would take the longest time. It takes about 4 hours to heal one limb. So, and probably about 3 days. I mean, if you got in a horrible, like God forbid, but if you got in and this happens, if you got in a horrible car accident, you can get a whole body rejuvenation, and it would take probably less than a month. As for total pure cure healing, absolutely rejuvenated. That's how this advanced technology works. That's what's been underway for a very long time. That's what's being accelerated, and that's a way more beneficial route to go towards than for, because what do? You put the interest back into the people. People can choose whether they want to have chemotherapy or whether they want to have holographic healing. That's totally normal, and that's their choice. Of course, what is more inexpensive and more effective, the holographic rejuvenation. What's the old way of doing it? Chemotherapy, pills, and a maybe. That's not the type of solution to the problems that we can solve. We have pure solutions. All right. One of the things that my company does, and I hold myself to the highest standards, is that we have pure solutions to everything. You know, we provide abundance, not just to your body, but to your life. And so that's one thing I hold very true and very dear, is I will do the best. I do the best, and I always have my entire life. Do the best that I can, especially researching the best things. And when I find out something new, I do it even better, which is why I'm really excited and really advocating for not only the advanced healing technology for sonic healing, which I've known for a while, and there are many patents for, and many inventors have made those, but also really strongly advocating for the acceleration of this process of holographic healing, because, of course, it is head over heels, hands down, way better than anything that Obamacare tried to bring up, and ultimately way better than Obamacare even failed to bring up. So this is such a win-win-win all around. It's beneficial for society, it's beneficial for politics, and it's beneficial for medicine and for economics. It is a win-win with just this product alone, with just that technology alone. Once again, revolutionizing the way that we view each other, revolutionizing the way that we view our society, and revolutionizing the way that we view health. That is exactly how important freedom is, because allowing that individual fruition of individual ideas to come into the light is exactly how we can exercise sovereignty for the benefit of the entire country, and how we can exercise sovereignty to practice it on the individual level, therefore creating a space of peace, not only in our community, in our city, but in our state and in our entire country. And I can tell you, this is such a marvelous day today, yesterday and the day before, for exactly what happened, because it is not a failure at all. It's a new beginning. It's a grand opportunity, and that's exactly how I view life in general. Every single second is a marvelous opportunity to once again accelerate faster than anything before, because once again, and this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, there is a grander solution for every single type of problem. And that is exactly the wonderful things about living in this day and age. We are not just here to watch history be made in front of us. We are creating history. We are the history. We are moving. We are able to provide better education and better healthcare. Once again, I want to bring up one other thing that is kind of unnecessary to bring up, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Error becomes clear when we're able to see error for something that's done. We're able to have more clarity of the entire situation, and we're able to have insight, which is why racism is so key, because it literally reiterates the opposite of what we can possibly do. Now, it's important to bring up racism because if we're still arguing over black and white and red and orange and purple and yellow, how can we possibly be able to have diplomatic relationships with extraterrestrial societies? How can we have advanced, diplomacy relationships with beings who are, 12 feet tall and have 3 toes and purple eyes? I mean, if we can't even agree on living on coexisting peacefully on the same planet as someone who has a different religious view or a different ideology, how can we live in peace with several other planets who have completely different aspects to religion and spirituality, and who you just have a completely different understanding of history, of religion in general. Probably even a completely different word, and something that's more complex than we can understand. Perhaps we are more complex than they can understand. See, these are very important stepping stones to realize exactly how all the things that we said were errors, or perhaps all the things that were to divide us, actually bring us closer than ever before, because we're able not to only transcend ourselves and our understanding of religion and our social and economic problems and our political problems, but we're able to transcend into an era which not only starts with the Embassy of Peace as a great foundation for peace on planet Earth, but as a great foundation for a galactic society in which we can basically have a solid foundation for diplomatic relationships with other planets, and ultimately with the Galactic Federation of Planets, and ultimately with Star Nations, and with Andromeda Council, and all these other entities, all these other councils who have many different planets and many different star systems, a part of the council who have lived in peace and who are working together on a grander scale than just a country level scale, just a diplomatic relationships, and that's what we're moving into. We're able to not only just move this unity into the step of uniting Democrats and Republicans, but once again, as an individual, and leading this age into a brand new level where we can truly transcend every type of problem that previously existed, because we're able to diplomatically work on a level that we can actually move and ask for help, for example, from beings, from societies, and from advanced understandings and tools and technologies that are way more advanced than what we previously understood, and much more advanced than our current technology, and much more advanced than our what we think are unsolvable problems, because they're on such another level that's way more advanced than us, that is way more peaceful, prosperous, and has more abundance than our current understanding. It is, in an essence, the very key to a sort of clarity that can be provided of how, once again, individuals are not just here to, like individuals such as me, Christopher Michael Curtis Bowen, not just state this type of sovereignty for the basis of liberty for ourselves and our posterity and for our country and for our planet, but to allow the sovereignty to allow us to really tap into the ability of liberty that's to be expansive, not just on a solar system level, but on a galactic level, and then therefore universal level. Once again, it's a God-given right, and once again, the foundation that was provided to us by our founding fathers. It's important that we keep those, that we keep and maintain, and once again exercise our sovereignty. And when we start exercising our sovereignties, we are going to have, in the sense, the metaphorical and the actual rhetorical and the actual physical mental muscles as well, built up to be able to lift the heavy loads, and to have the strength and the endurance and the stamina to deal with the actual bigger, more prosperous abundance and grand, excellent renaissance that is due and that is underway for every single human being. So that is how we do it. We do it through working amongst each other, through our own sovereignty as individuals, developing a better world, or better state cohesion, developing more innovation, peace, stability, and sustainability with advanced technology, and with environments that we co-create that puts us in states of abundance versus states of scarcity. That we, once again have a balance of power, so that we create actual laws that protect the rights of the people, of we the people, and doesn't give government too much power, and so we don't have problems such as Obamacare. Such as wars that we don't want to continue, and such as major economic problems and issues, and such as tyrannical and oligarchies in control. uh, developing, once again, free market and a marketplace where we can really have a lot more freedom to choose what we want to do versus getting caught in a metaphorical corner where we have to pay for a certain type of healthcare, a certain type of tax because it's a mandate given by a tyrannical form of government. We're able to be more free and have more insight and have more clarity and therefore more wisdom as to how we can enter in a realm and set a foundation for not only liberty based off the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence, but in a sense, taking it to the next level, which is incredibly important, establishing the Embassy of Peace to lead in a grand, prosperous way for abundance on all aspects of pure freedom in every possible way, to allow actual liberty in our lifestyles and in our lifetime. Important once again that we have unity, whether you're black, white, Democratic, Republican, left, right, that ultimately any type of cohesion, whether it's clarity of individuals working towards freedom or the errors that provide clarity to a certain situation or environment, it allows us to mature, evolve, and therefore progress at an accelerated rate. Once again, these balance of powers allow us to make proper laws, and these laws will make these criminals subject to them, and these criminals who have broken the laws shall be thrown in jail or will be subject to the law, and they have a right to a speedy trial. It's important that we, all branches of the government support the U.S. Constitution, supports the laws, and enforces them as their jobs are supposed to be. It's important that we know the difference between, we the people, the general population, know the difference between radicalism and nationalism, and that McCain, which is one of the main examples, is really known for what he did, and that we ultimately, the great example of McCain is to know what war means, why we don't want war, and why there's a massive movement undergoing, as I really speak, to exist in, and to move towards peace in the highest possible, most prosperous way, with the highest consciousness in mind. Once again, it's great to have an actual marketplace versus mandates, and to have a free market versus illegal drug cartel, drug lords, and massive just drug crimes. And it's important that we don't have this not only illegal but just pedophilic sexual trafficking that's pretty much illegal and corrupt. And that we end corruption in all forms of government, all forms of education, and all forms of social engagement. Corruption has gone rampant, and those criminals are known, such as George Soros, Clinton's, and Podesta, and you can read it in the book as well. It's broken down in the book Making of the President. But it's important that we really learn, discover the truth, and that we free ourselves from this tyranny once and for all. We can live in a really, really great society. We will live in a really great society. I will it. So that is how it shall be. I'm your host, Christopher Bowen. This is another episode of this grand show that I am doing right now called Co-Creation of Positive, Peaceful Human Destiny. And this is a co-creative, positive experience that we're alive in, that we're willing to work towards, and really allowing ourselves to have the opportunity to co-create the best possible peaceful area, peaceful environment, peaceful state, country, therefore peaceful world. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. We shall change the world, make it a better place. God bless America, and God bless planet Earth.